Hymes, and I am the founder and host of the Total Woman Summit. And we are smack dab in the middle of our 11-day, 26 speakers, 22 sessions in the midst of COVID-19, aka life interrupted. We've gathered the experts. We're talking about the topics and issues that matter to you the most. And today we are talking about homeschooling versus learning at home and whether or not it's driving you crazy, wherever you find yourself, and what you can do to get over that hump and leave this with your edges and your sanity. Today we are so fortunate to have with us Sethlina Amayke, who's a good friend of mine and who is also someone who is an experienced homeschooler. She likes to call herself someone who's new to homeschooling. And then we also have my good friend Chamel Evans, who is all things CEO, brand strategist, entrepreneur, just a woman who is about the business. And so she is someone who is now finding herself learning at home. And so both of these ladies have a wealth of experience and knowledge. And so we're going to have a very rich discussion today. So, hi, ladies. Hi, Seth. How are you?
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Hi, Chamel.
Hey, Sherica. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And in full disclosure, these are not only amazing women, they happen to be a part of my tribe and my friend circle. And so, as you all can tell, I just exploit my friend circle and just ask people to say yes. And lend their talents and their gifts to you. But before we move any further, I would like to make sure that you all can see and hear us. So if you could do me a favor, if someone can drop inside the chat, if you can see and hear all of us, okay. And you can use your chat function to do that. While we're waiting on someone to tell us that, let me tell you a little bit about how today will go. So rules 1 through 50, we're going to have some fun. You're already sort of in the midst of homeschooling or learning at home, so we're going to make this fun. Rules 51 through 100, we are going to talk to one another. You're going to talk to us, we're going to talk to each other, and we're going to answer the questions that you want us to answer. Thank you so much, Dr. Chisholm, for letting us know you can see and hear us okay. So you don't have to wait until the end of this to ask your questions. You can drop them in Q&A throughout the conversation. We're answering questions real time. And if you are feeling super bold, you can drop them in the chat function. So have your way either way. And in full disclosure, my good friend Seth is currently nurturing life in her belly. And so the life inside her runs her body. So if she needs to hop off screen for a moment, she was not snatched by alien people. She did not disappear, and the rapture did not happen. Okay? She will be right back. She will be right back. So just be cool. All right, let's see. So we're in the middle of, let's see, probably what, week 6, 7, and for some people it's week 8 for this learning at home and the COVID-19 that's changed our life. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we do that, I'd love for us to learn a little bit more about each of you. So Seth, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Sethlina. I currently live in Dallas, Texas. I am a homeschool mom, entrepreneur, author, speaker. And so I am, like I said, in the midst of figuring out while COVID was happening, I had already kind of had a little bit of a head start with the homeschooling thing. And so I look forward to sharing my knowledge with you all.
That's awesome. And then Chamel, tell us a little bit about you.
Hey, my name is Chamel Evans, and I am in Nashville, Tennessee. I am, first, most important, a wife of my high school sweetheart of going on 14 years, and we have 3 boys under 11. I am a brand strategist and web and graphic designer, helping other Christian entrepreneurs to launch their brands. And right now in this season of life, I'm learning how to gracefully balance being a business owner and mom, and learning to adjust to homeschooling my boys.
That's so awesome. And so let me tell you guys how I met both Sethi and Chamel. So I met Sethi because Sethi does amazing work with signature products and just customized gifts. There's less customization now. I don't want to get in trouble as a friend. But she has these amazing comfort products. And so I saw a post on one of the stylists to the stars where she had packaged some really beautiful gifts for him. And so then I connected with her via Instagram and then through her website, and we had a call about some gifts that I was thinking about ordering. And then that just sort of blossomed into a friendship. And here we are 2 or 3 years later, I don't know. We sat on the phone for a couple of hours, and so that's how we met each other. And we've been friends ever since. And she does so much great work to support all the good stuff for women. She does Tribe for women, which is an amazing experience. You guys should definitely go to her. Wait a minute, where do they sign up for Tribe to get the newsletters and stuff then? Nowhere?
Not right now.
Not right now. You guys
follow me on Instagram, and there's going to be some updates through there.
Okay, you can follow her on Instagram. You can look in the chat. All of that information is there. So because I follow her tribe, I went to a tribe gathering, and that's where I met Chamel last year, probably right around this time. I met Chamel. I was at a tribe, and Chamel was up doing some sort of workshop at Seti's tribe, and then they had the nerve to tell me that she does amazing brand work. Okay, great. And so when I meet you somewhere and I'm like, you do amazing work and you love God, oh, we're going to work together. Perfect. And so we've been rocking together ever since, and she's helped elevate my brand for both my business, Polish Consulting, as well as the Total Woman Summit. So all of the beautiful graphics you see, she helps those. She is the brainiac behind that and the creative behind that. My website elevation, she's done that, bringing products to market. She's helped me do that. And so nothing happens with Total Woman Summit or with Polish without Chamel. So you can actually follow Chamel though, because she is taking clients, so she's not like carrying a life. And so you can find all of her stuff inside the chat. But that's how I met them. All right. So I like to let you guys know that I actually know the people that I will bring to you and put before you, because I'm responsible for this platform. And for those of you who are new to the Total Woman Summit experience, the summit was created to empower women through education, connection, and community. And so we pride ourselves on talking about the things that you want to talk about, but bringing subject matter experts to you so you can hear from them, because I don't know all of these things, but I do have the resources to find the right people to talk about it. So let's talk homeschooling. Sethy, you mentioned that you had a little bit of a jump start on homeschooling because you had made this decision that it was right for you and your family some time ago. So could you tell us a little bit more about how you made the decision and how old your children are, so we can get some perspective around that as well, and why that was the right choice for you and your family?
Sure. So at the time, I had a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old. Since then, they've all had birthdays. So currently, I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old. And so it's a little bit complicated. I'm going to try to explain as best as I can. I have wanted to homeschool my children since they were in my womb, especially my oldest. And it always felt overly complicated. I mean, I researched it, and it just felt like, I mean, to be honest, there just wasn't a lot of people of color that I could identify with, that I could look and say, oh, she can do it, or she's doing it, I can do it too, especially in Texas. It's a lot of, Caucasian evangelical, and there's nothing wrong with that. It just wasn't something that I just didn't see a lot of representation, if that makes sense, across the board. So it was very difficult for me to figure out if this was for me. And so after my son was born, I mean, I was always a kind of a stay-at-home mom. I'd go to work and then come back and go to work for a year and then come back for another year and a half. And so the lifestyle was already a part of what I did. I was already a stay-at-home mom, semi-homeschooling, just not in the traditional curriculum type of way. In any case, last year we had a lot of shifting, a lot of changing. We downsized. There was a lot happening. In the midst of that, I just remember God telling me it's time. And so the complication is not, when I say complicated, it's because I don't think I would have done it on my own had God not said it's time. And so that's the very first key, is that especially if you're a believer, take that to God in prayer, because if homeschooling is for you, he will gift you to do it. He will grace you to do it. And so I felt that he was gracing me and gifting me in that moment to take the leap. And so I did. Since then, it's a lot. It is a lot. It is something that I think that if God had not told me to do it, I think I would have stretched out the time and just kind of, pined over it and tried to research as much as possible. But the main identifier for me is the idea that I wanted to spend more time with my children. I wanted to be with them more. I wanted to pour into them more. And so it's less, and those that I've since found a group of homeschoolers that are people of color, which is amazing. And the same line of why runs through the same thing. It has less to do a lot of times with education and more to do with knowing that you won't get this time back, right? So a lot of people, and there's nothing wrong with it. I did it for a little bit. You send your kids to school, they come back a couple hours later, and then you're rushing to get dinner on the table, and then you're rushing to get them to bed, and then you do the same the next morning. With homeschooling, you get the opportunity to really pour into your child. And that's the reason that we decided to take that route.
Thank you so much, Sethy, and we appreciate your transparency with that. And you mentioned that it's difficult and it's tough being able to do that, and that you put that to prayer. So that's rule number one, is making sure that the decision to homeschool is your decision. Don't do it because you're pressured into it, or because someone else does it and it looks fun or trendy and Spanish, or you're trying to make a point.
Yes.
But she already mentioned that was her desire from when her children were in her womb, and it was still difficult for her. And as a person of faith, she went to God in prayer just to make sure that decision was the right thing for her to do. And she didn't say this part, but her degrees are in education. So there's another level of sort of reinforcement and clarity for you there too, that she had all of the skill sets to educate, and still this is a very complex decision for her and her family, because she understood just the weight of it all and the responsibility of it all. And so then Chamel, you are on the other side of that spectrum. You mentioned that you have 3 boys under the age of 11. We're sending you an award just for that.
Yeah.
So that's a lot.
Sorry, it froze on me. I don't know what happened.
Okay, yeah, no, we can still hear you. And so you said you have 3 boys under 11. Can you tell us what grades they're in, Chamel?
Okay, so I have a pre-K, pre-kindergarten, 4-year-old, and then an 8-year-old who's 2nd grade, and then 11-year-old who is in 6th grade. So this transition isn't easy. It is hard trying to juggle 3 separate grades and 3, different levels of education to try to balance it all. So it is a challenge.
What has that been like for you, Chamel, from when they first came home to sort of what it looks like now?
Okay, well, let me back up a little bit. I want to kind of reiterate how Sethy's and I's story is a little bit different. As for me, I've always seen myself as a career woman, wanting to have a healthy balance of pursuing my career in business. But I worked outside of the home up until last June, full-time. And so for me, I made the choice to step away from a full-time job to be my own boss, to be a full-time entrepreneur, to still go after my heart's desires and the things God has gifted me in. But I wanted more flexibility to be home and have a little bit more space to be able to do some more things with my boys, whether that's visiting at school, helping more out at school. So for my viewpoint, I never saw myself as being a homeschooler or having, the desire to have them at home, but just wanted more flexibility to be more present in their education and insight. So for me, this transition with COVID to the home learning has been tough. One of the things is it interrupts your schedule. I did, before all of this, had kind of a balance act of, I had work hours, family home lifetime. I had time throughout the day to say, hey, this day I'm gonna go visit the boys for lunch. I'm gonna do this. So it interrupted the schedule. So now in this new place, I think before I even started thinking about what homeschooling and learning at home looks like for my boys, I really had to make space to process that this is different and that it's okay to be flexible with my work hours, with my work schedule. So one, I had to do some of that internal processing for me to say, okay, you have to step back from it and really look at this thing very gracefully. And then really just showing up to meet my boys right where they are. To be honest with you, the first couple of weeks when all of this happened and we were going into a spring break week, so I was kind of a little relaxed, like, hey, we're just going to enjoy spring break and we'll kind of figure it out after that. But at that point, then it was the realization of how do I continue to teach and support my kids in their education while trying to balance the home front and a business. So it really has been stepping back and just realizing that my time right now looks different, and that's okay. The challenge for me right now is that there's so much materials that teachers are pumping and resources, and I get that they want to support parents, but they're not really realizing that parents could have multiple kids at home, and parents could be working from home. So it's really a juggling act to figure out what's the best time for learning, because again, they're back at home, so their whole schedule has changed. So just figuring out how to stay flexible, how to meet them where they are and not put on too much pressure, because again, I can have a running list of all these things that the teachers want us to do, but I have to really sit back and engage what works for our family dynamic, what works for their schedule, and what works for my business schedule. So really just staying graceful in this process, and really my motto is I'm just taking it one day at a time, and just choosing each day to do a little bit, and know that this little season is not going to dictate their whole entire future. So just operating in grace as I navigate this.
No, and thank you too, Chamel, just for your transparency, because I'm sure a lot of mothers have found themselves, and parents in general have found themselves in that situation. So a couple of things that I want to just go back and revisit is that you allowed yourself to admit and own the fact that this wasn't what you had in mind. How many of you, by show of hands, you can use your dial controls at the bottom of your screen, how many of you, by show of hands, really have found that you had to allow yourself some grace and admit to yourself this wasn't what you had in mind, it wasn't what you envisioned was being with your children all day. You enjoyed the joys of your career. Got it. Yep. So it can be disruptive. It could be disruptive to your career. So the first thing we want you to know is give yourself some grace. It is okay. It is okay for you to admit, even though you had them, that you had no intention of spending all day, every day with them. We just gave you an out. You can admit that. Now exhale. And then secondly, I love that you mentioned, Chamel, that you had to really admit and accept the fact that your schedule just looks different.
And it's a daily challenge. You know, it's every day looks different. And I tell my boys too, it's like, you know, let's not put pressure on ourselves to check off so many boxes. We're going to wake up every day, make sure we give God first due, praise and worshiping him, and then we'll take care of the necessities, and then we'll do a little learning in the morning, and we're just going to take it one step, one moment at a time, because really you have to embark on this season of just learning to stay flexible, give yourself grace, and just space the process. All of this new to a lot of us, and I think as moms, it's so easy to get focused on the shift in the dynamics in the home front and the schooling, but we have to step back and say our kids are experiencing, you know, this dynamic too. So we kind of have to dial back and kind of think what they're going through and how they're processing it. And so for me, it's just taking each day one step at a time.
And so you mentioned that you have 3 children that are in 3 different grade levels, and that all the teachers are pushing out work. And Sethy, I know, yes, okay, you back? Okay. And I know that you also have 2 children. How old are your babies?
So one is 5 and one is 7.
1 is 5 and 1 is 7. So 1 is 7, and that's also, even though they're close in age proximity, but they still have different learning levels, right?
Yeah. So, in homeschooling, basically and this is why I didn't mention it to begin with, is that a person can be first grade, but still be doing some kindergarten, some first grade, some second grade, some third grade work. And so when you ask a homeschooler what grade is your child, it just, they, there is no, sometimes not a concrete answer. So right now I have if she was in traditional school, she'd be in pre-K, but she's doing some kindergarten work. And she sometimes does some first grade work with her brother if I feel like she can take it. So it is across the spectrum, from pre-K to second grade is what I'm teaching.
Wow. And so that's a little bit different because you're not getting all of these assignments from all of these teachers. Because I talked to a friend last week, this is a true story, or 2 weeks ago, and it never occurred to me because my son is a full-on adult, right? And so I'm not in this scenario. And in full transparency, I thank God daily. Daily. But I have so much compassion and empathy for those friends of mine that are in this situation. And so my friend said to me, they have all the technology in the world because her husband is IT leader at work. And so she said, I have 3 children in 3 different grades, and they all have assignments. If we didn't have multiple laptops and computers, first of all, how would they do these assignments?
Yeah,
right.
He's like, and what if people are having live broadcasts at the same time? How would I choose which child's education matters the most? Because there are 3 different grade levels.
I have a teacher friend who just discovered that one of her students has been doing all his assignments from his cell phone because they did not have a laptop computer. So and they don't have internet. So he has been taking internet from his neighbor on his cell phone to turn in his work. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. That never occurred to me. She said to me, right, they don't have the financial inequities, they don't have the hardships financially, and they don't have technology barriers. But what she did say was just going from room to room, they all have to be in a separate room because otherwise the feedback from each of them learning. So 3 different children, and they're all boys. And she's like, and I have to work. She's an SVP at a bank. So everybody's in a room working, and her husband's an IT leader at work. She's like, everybody's like in a room. Every room is an office or a classroom. And so when I hear some ruckus, I got to step away and go in there and see like who's doing what and if they're even paying attention. Because she's like, one of my kids had the camera on and he was asleep. He was taking a nap. So what we're talking about right now is what if you have multiple children and that's a reality. Yeah. They are unbothered. She's like, and so they are now in an environment where they have 3 different children, 3 different grade levels. They have so much work. She's like, I manage a book of business that's well over $50 million, and I am stressed out about 3 different levels of grade work.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
How do you all manage that?
That's the thing that I'm so grateful for, that God gave me the opportunity. And I mean, I always tell my husband, I feel like he gifted me an opportunity to get ahead of the curve. And for us, like today is Wednesday. Is today Wednesday, y'all? What days are
yeah.
Wednesday? Oh, Jesus, it's all
it's one big day. At this point in COVID, it's just today.
Today is Wednesday, right? I wasn't feeling well this morning. I wake up and I probably rolled out of bed around 10:30. Okay, don't judge me. Yes, I did. And that is, I mean, in general, how that works. By the time I wake up, my kids have eaten breakfast because, you know, my son is 7. He thinks he's a chef. So he gets his sister together. They sit on their learning iPads until I'm able to get to them. Then that day, if I decide that, okay, I'm going to spend 2 hours teaching them, I do, or 30 minutes, I do. And whatever I don't do that day, I will move to the next day. It is very, very, very flexible. So there was times last week with 3-4 days in a row, there was no way, I'm not doing it, right? But then the very next week I caught up. And so there's a flexibility that I have that I know a lot of my friends that have multiple children do not have, right? Where they are stressed out trying to figure out, and some of these packets, a friend of mine showed up at my door. Yes, she had a mask and gloves on, but showed up at my door. She was like, baby, do you see this? The packet was this big for a first grader. I mean, when I say this big, Okay.
Is
And
it a coloring book?
And
What is
basically what
this?
she has to do, she has to, every week she has to, some of y'all will identify with this, is that she has to pick up their kids' work on Friday from the school line. So they go drive to the school line, somebody hands them a packet with gloves on. They have to return it the next Friday.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what's happening is that by the time she actually gets the packet and sits down with her kids, she doesn't understand what's happening. The kid doesn't understand what's happening. And they're doing all this video conferencing. I was like, nope. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
So my child has no idea that COVID is happening. My 7-year-old, I mean, he knows that something, obviously, he's not like, we know that corona, but the actual feeling, the pressure, the stress, he has no idea.
So for those of you that joined us late, what we're talking about is, so Sethy got an advance on homeschooling, so she made the decision a couple of years ago to homeschool her children, and they're 7 and 5 years old. And so Chamel is a homeschooler by force because of COVID-19. And so her children are learning at home. She has 3 boys under 11. And so we've been talking about what the difference is in their sort of experiences with this. And so now we're talking about how homeschooling, Sethy mentioned, that it allows her the flexibility to let her children learn on whatever levels they're in. For instance, she used her 5-year-old daughter as an example, who she was in a traditional learning environment. She was in pre-K, and that she is actually doing kindergarten work, some first grade work, and did you say also some second grade work too?
There yet. She want to be, but she ain't. She
advanced. Okay, yes. But she's doing some kindergarten work and some first grade work. But what Chamel is experiencing that is she is getting packets of assignments for all 3 of her children under 11 for 3 different grades. And so how there's this pressure to do all that work, and Sethy was just explaining to us that one of her friends is
some insight here. I'm so sorry to cut you off because I want people
no,
to
know,
because of an educator background, I have a lot of educator friends, right? And a lot of people that work in school systems. And I am telling, I want to give moms some grace here. I want you to, yes, I'm in homeschool. It's going to seem a little condescending because yes, I just talked about flexibility. However, I used to be in the school system. What I know for sure is that these packets and these expectations that they are laying on you, it is the school system shooting for the moon and hoping y'all land in the stars. They are very, very aware of the discrepancies. They are very, very aware that not everybody's going to be able to rise to the occasion, but they have to do their job and at least try. Yeah. They have to try. They have to throw everything at you and hope that somebody grabs onto something, because otherwise by the time your kid gets to the next grade, that teacher's about to be stressed out. Whoever gets these next 3rd or 4th or 5th or 6th or 7th grade, they missed a whole semester of like crucial information. But they're also understanding that they're going to have to start from a blank slate. They're just hoping that it won't be from 0.
Yeah.
Y'all have some grace about yourself. Just know that if you miss a couple of assignments, you are not going to fail. They're going to move you on. I promise you. They're going to move you on. Okay. And so, and whatever stresses you have to keep in contact with the teacher. You have to be able to understand that today is Wednesday. My kid is not having it. My kid is emotionally stressed out. My kid is tired. We are checking out today. And go ahead and mark them absent if you want to. We're checking out today because
you taking roll on y'all own children in y'all house.
I have teacher friends who say they would much rather have an emotionally well child this next semester than a smart child, because an emotionally well child you can teach. A child that has done all their work but has been so stressed out by their parents, by COVID, by life, that they're unteachable. That's a psychological issue that needs to be attacked before they can even teach them algebra. Does it make sense? And so if you see that your child is about to crash and burn, turn off that screen. Let that baby sleep. Let that baby sleep, because you have to understand that they are experiencing pressure just like we are. They just don't know. They don't have the words to handle it, especially these young ones. These 6, 7, 8, 9-year-olds, they're missing birthday parties. They don't understand it. And so I am giving y'all, I want y'all to, I mean, like I said, I know I'm a homeschooler. I know I just talked about flexibility. So it's like, girl, she don't know what she's talking about. I was in education for a very long time, taught classrooms. All I'm saying is that when there's a child that is happy and present, that's my baby. I can teach you. I can teach you. That child that is emotionally scarred and just, stressed out, they're gone. it's just difficult. So just advocate for your children. Those packets, these school systems are literally throwing you 100 and hoping to get 20.
Geez, man, that's so good.
If they get 5, they are grateful. So just do your best.
Do your best. And you wanted to share something too, Chamel. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say with me, I'm in the situation where teachers are providing resources. I would encourage moms or parents who are watching, just stay flexible. Do what you can with what you have. Like Sethy said, they're going to have to figure out a way to catch everybody up. Everybody's going to start at the same level. For me, what I've told my boys is, let's just pick a little. And here's another tip. We have summertime coming, whatever that looks like. You can execute a little learning over the summer, extend it out. Don't feel, excuse me, pressure to try to do all these things in these last few weeks, depending on when your school period ends. So for me and my husband decide the exercises and resources that teachers have given, we're just going to do what we can during the week. Like yesterday, my son wasn't feeling well, so we didn't hop on the teacher line. It was no reason for me to have him on that classroom line when he wasn't feeling good. So I just said, throughout the summer, we're going to do something fun, one of the resources throughout the summer, just to keep them engaged educationally. So I think you should just be creative in that way and with flexibility. The other thing that I tell my boys, it's not always about the book stuff. I'm using this time for character building, because when we build our character, making sure our kids are healthy mentally, having dialogue and talking through just different circumstances, like Sethy said, that's going to make for a healthier child. So when they do enter back into the school setting, there's not this big gap or just this stress or pressure. Because think how we feel as adults with pressure. Why are we going to start the next generation with this pressure? So if we can reflect that and start mimicking that in them right now, and just tell them it's okay, we're going to do a little bit at a time, do what we can, I think that's going to make for a better student in the long run.
Yeah.
That is so good. Do a little bit at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the fact I love the fact that you guys really address that the children are also going through their own trauma as it relates to this. And it's from both perspectives, whether or not you are a homeschooler and you were already homeschooling, or you are forced into learning at home due to COVID. The truth is the landscape has changed for these babies. It's because they can't go celebrate their birthdays, to Steffi's point, with their friends. Because if you're a homeschool baby, you still celebrate your birthdays with your friends.
People think a homeschool is just stay home all day. We had a schedule, y'all. Monday was swimming, Tuesday was homeschool group, Thursday, we had things in between. Like they get taught art by a whole other person. We are unable to do any of that. So it changes our landscape as well. Because for me to be able to homeschool, I have to be able to say, okay, on Wednesdays we do this, on Thursdays we go here, on Fridays we go here, and all those places are closed. All of them are shut down. And so the landscaping, it's it's for everybody. Nobody is immune. Even those that have been homeschooling, nobody's immune. We are all trying to figure out, what do we do with our day today?
Yeah, everybody's trying to figure out what you do with your day to day. And I want to share this little story with you, right? So this really happened. I was talking to my same friend I was telling you about that has the 3 boys in 3 separate grades. And so she's an SVP at a bank, but she feels like she's really struggling and failing as a mother, because she is like, it's a lot, like trying to make sure they're all doing the work. It's so much work. And then in her case, this work isn't even being graded. They're just doing it as a busy checkbox exercise. And she has no tools, at least she's not aware of. And we'll talk more about that this evening with Dr. Chisholm, who is an educator and does help our education system with advice and sort of guidance. Is they're not grading it, and she has no measure by wherewith to even determine if learning is taking place. So that's a whole nother complexity, right? They're doing all this work. How do you measure if the learning is actually taking place? And she said this occurred. She had just gotten off her 15,100 million. I'm doing this new math that our leader in office taught us. And she said she was doing that for the day, right? Her conference call for the day. And she was also trying to simultaneously simultaneously make dinner. And her son came in the kitchen. He was supposed to be doing his homework. And she said he was dancing and singing. And she was like, stop that dancing and singing and do your homework. And she said he looked so sad. And he told her, but we always dance and sing in the kitchen. So she said that immediately reminded her and shocked her back to reality that their entire home has turned into school, the playground, whereas it just used to be home. Yeah. And so you have to don't rob the children of their place of refuge, which is their home, and turn it into this high-stress performance environment. Can you both speak to that respectively? And I'll start with you, Chamel, first.
Well, I want to connect this back to one of the conversations we've had in the workshop. We talked with, I think, Dr. Massey about the performance treadmill. Like, seriously, as adults, we get on this treadmill and we're always looking at success and things like that. We got to be mindful of that, because just like in the kids, like you said, it's true. My home is now, there's no disconnect, from work environment, school, everything is here. So I found myself in situations where I looked at the boys, oh, you need to do this, like the expectation to perform and do, because we're in that mindset. I'm like, did you do your homework? Did you do your lesson? Did you read your book? Did you do this? Like, everything started shifting more as a drill sergeant. And so I had to dial back and say, you got to get off this performance treadmill. Because of this shift in our dynamics, I have to scale back and say, this is our home. Me and my boys say it all the time. As for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. And so we talk about all the time how when we're serving God in our home, this is an atmosphere to have the love, the peace, the joy. And so we really have to check ourselves and say, these things, this pressure, this new pressure, is it really worth it? Is it really worth the cost of our home front, the peace and the joy we have? So it's definitely a balancing act. So we have to really do those checks and to remind ourselves to create that safe place of love for them. And for me, I tell the boys, okay, we're going to have an hour time of learning in the morning, and then let's have some free time, creative time. And then I'll grab another hour in the evening. But then after that, I literally verbally say, okay, now it's family fun time. We got to shut it down, because for them having these little ones in the house, I have to have these benchmarks, because if not, I don't want them to be on this performance treadmill of saying, well, mama needs, the expectation is always high. And so I have to really check myself in that and really dial back when I feel myself trying to escalate there.
That's so good. And what about you, Seth? What are you doing to make sure that your children have a balanced, loving home environment?
So speaking about the performance treadmill, in homeschooling, there are different methods, different thoughts, school of thoughts, right? So when people think of homeschooling, think of this as one big balloon. It's not. So there's something called a Charlotte Mason method. There's something called unschooling. So Charlotte Mason is somebody that really believe that kids learn best outside. It's very nature driven. It's very traditional schooling. It's just different. And there's unschoolers. Unschoolers do not follow any curriculum in general. They just, they're very child learning led. Whatever the child wants to learn, that's what we're learning, right? And the traditional method. The traditional is kind of, it's almost like bringing your school classroom into your own classroom, right? I'm a mix of them all. And so because I'm a mix of them all, I still believe that a child needs some kind of level of, how do I know that you've got your ABCs down, right? However, I am not so stringent that I am taken aback when they don't know the letter Z, when they should know the letter Z. No, it's a bad example, but you know what I'm saying? Like whatever the concept is. And so homeschooling, I used to be on that treadmill. That first couple of months I started, I was like, they have to keep up with all the kids in the entire state of Texas, because if they don't, whatever. Now I have pulled back to the point where I'm like, you know what? I know that my school year is going to be extended, right? So I don't stress myself out during this semester, whatever this semester means to most. So we're going to have school at least once or twice a week for the whole year. And so because of that, I don't mind when a Thursday is crazy. I don't mind when a random Monday morning is spent on the couch all morning watching PBS Kids. It doesn't bother me. But when like I said in the beginning, it used to, because I was like, I have to keep up with everybody else. My son has to read just like the first grader in the public school down the street. My daughter has to know, but I learned very quickly that my kids learn better and faster in the most relaxed environment. So we can be laying down in the middle of the grass outside, learning about butterflies, and they don't even know they're learning. They just learned about caterpillars and the chrysalis and how they emerge from their, all of that. And they don't even know that they're learning. And so that's how I've taken learning. And so, like I said, it's a mix of unschooling, which means that I use nature a lot. I use very general, everyday stuff. Like my daughter bakes because now she knows that this is a quarter of a cup. Does she know what a quarter means? No, but she knows that 1/4 means that this is how much flour I need. That's a life lesson that she's going to be, being able to use later when she's learning fractions, right? And so I try my best to make this home first. So it is homeschooling, but the home is more important to me than the school part. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
That makes perfect sense. So how is that? So how have you all been doing that? Drop us some notes in chat if that's been a challenge for you, or in the Q&A function. You can do that anonymously or with your name, whatever you're most comfortable with, because we certainly want to hear from you on that. But I love that you both talked about having to be flexible and making sure that it's home first, because it's a change for them, and that kids learn better and quicker in a more relaxed environment. And I'll put a pause there so we can answer a quick question, and then I'll come back to what I wanted to say for that. And it says, would you say the same for middle and high schoolers? And I think this was earlier with regard to the flexibility and not policing them so much. And a participant that asked that question, if that's not what you meant, if you don't mind dropping a little bit more clarification. But I think that's when you posted that question, which was with the flexibility. And if you ladies don't mind, and Seth, I'll punch you because I know that you were in the education environment, and then I'll go because even though my child was an adult, he had to go through the teenage years as well. And he had a couple of surgeries too while he was a teenager in school. That meant he was at home too. So then I was in that learning at home environment for about 3 months and going back and forth to get work. And here's what I will tell you. I also was a career mom and also a single mother. So you add in those other layers of complexity, and I traveled a lot with my job, right? Perfect storm for the learning at home, ideal learning environment. But one of the things that I had to do was I am very structured. I am very, very driven and very results oriented. So at first I was very much being the tyrant of a mother, because that I can describe myself in that way, because I was very much about structure. We're going to do this, and this done. Why can't you get this done during these times? That's all you got to do. And making the mistake of measuring him and his learning style against myself and my learning style, and assuming what drove me drove him. It did. I can tell you I was highly unsuccessful, and I created a lot of friction in our mother-son relationship unnecessarily. And it would take me about 6 weeks into that and recognizing that our family dynamic was changing and that my home had become very much of a huge performance treadmill, and it wasn't conducive to his healing and recovering from his procedure. And it also wasn't conducive to making him want to learn, because I was trying to turn him into a mini me, which was being very unsuccessful. And so I had to dial it all the way back. And I realized that, first of all, no one's really doing 6 hours of learning every day in school. No one. And the truth is, if you work 8 hours a day in an office, you can quickly learn, working from home, that you can do your job in fewer hours.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay? So what I realized was that if he got up on a Monday, whether he's in pain or he just wasn't feeling it, the goal was to get the work done by the due date. So if you needed to do a little bit, 30 minutes here, 2 hours here today, I took him off that structured environment because my home wasn't school, and it was home. And then also letting him learn at the times of day that made sense for him. He was a late sleeper. So actually, he did more work between 2 and 6, and he slept at 12, got up, took a shower, ate, and then did the work. And so, I made adjustments for his actual learning style, because now I know, looking back, that one of the challenges with the traditional learning environment, from my humble opinion, non-educator, non-expert opinion, I just want to be clear on that, is that we try to force feed what works for the majority to everyone. And I don't think that that works. I know it doesn't work in a corporate environment, doesn't work in a business environment, which is why we have all of these different adult learning theories. There are other theories that work and can be applied to children. So I just wanted to share that with you all. For if you have a teenager, they need a little bit more structure, I think. But I would say you can exercise the ability to help them with real life stuff like managing the household and baking, making them responsible for going to the grocery store, giving them a list. You don't have to go in with them, give them the list of groceries, give them the money, tell them the budget.
I think we lost you.
Your mic.
Mike.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, it came back. You're good. Oh, and it's out.
It's out again. It's going in and out.
Can you hear me now? No?
Yeah.
What?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say just like this.
Don't move.
That's weird. Don't move. Okay. But what I realized is you guys can use stuff like sending them to the store. Send your teenagers to the store to get all the groceries. If they're 12 and 13, give them the grocery list and the list of substitute items and tell them to call you when they're ready to check out. And you can go in the store, go through the groceries, make sure they got the right thing. You're teaching them budgeting. You're teaching them life skills. You're teaching them how to navigate in public, how to navigate the stressors of having to find alternative products. Then you can let them sit down with a budget too about, to Steffi's point about baking and then budgeting. And then you can say, hey, you're going to manage the household for today. You're going to be the person that's going out talking to the lawn people and making sure that's done. Or you say, hey, this is cleaned from 2 to 3. We clean up. And so get them involved in real life skills. Let them do research on which gas stations within a 2-mile radius has the best gas, at the most reasonable price. And I want 87 or premium. You can get the children involved in real learning. Let them research stuff like, this is what you could do for your high schoolers. Like, we're paying too much for cable. See who's, right now, this is what we're paying. You get on the phone with Comcast. You get on the phone with AT&T or whoever the carrier is in your area. So that's real stuff that you can get your teenagers involved in so they can be doing something different. But Steffi, as an educator, do you have other advice for those folks that have teenagers?
Because I don't have a teenager, I'm not, this is not personal experience, this is more like in the classroom. A, but B, we are part of a homeschool group where they have teenagers as part of, the overall group. And in talking to those mothers, a lot of those mothers, what they do when they're, and by the way, some people homeschool from kindergarten all the way through like 12th grade. Like they are committed to the cause full time. So their kids have never been in the school system. And some of these teenagers, when I look at them, they are well-rounded, they, very well-spoken, they get their work done. And when asked how, just like you were saying, Sherica, is that most of them just allow their kids to study when it is best for them. So they put the work in the kids' hands. They don't care how it gets done, 10 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock in the morning, this is what you're supposed to do for the day, right? And it's their responsibility to figure out how it needs to get done for the day. So, in traditional school, you gotta be, most high schools are in school by 6:37 at the latest, 7:15, 7:30, right? And they are, if you're not a morning person, you are forced to be a morning person because the idea is that once you get a real job, you're gonna have to become a morning person anyways. But what they're finding is that if you give the kid the opportunity to have it in their own hands, to say that I'm gonna study this at this time, do this at this time, in between mow lawn at this time, take out the garbage at this time, they flourish. They flourish. And just like in the workspace, yes, there are rules and regulations and, corporate, but in general, if you need to get something done and the date is the 15th, whether you do it on the 12th or the 11th or the 9th or at midnight on the 15th, nobody's checking for you. Nobody, just get the work done. As long as it's ready in that meeting by 9 a.m. on the 15th, nobody said, oh, you did this last night? Nobody worries about that. And so it's the same as teaching teenagers a life skill where they are autonomous of how they get it done and how they learn. And so letting your child sleep until 12, let them sleep, right? So we do this thing where you got to be up, and how are you going to be an adult? And when it's time to be an adult, they will be an adult. I promise you. When it's time to become an adult and they got to be at work at 8 o'clock, Sherica, does your child not go to work when he's time to go to work? Does he not clock in?
He does, and you know what? He goes at 6 a.m.
You didn't break him. Because some parents would have been like, well, during those weeks when he was sick, if I didn't make sure that he was, you know what I mean? Our children are so flexible. They're so flexible. If you give them autonomy over their own, how they learn, when they learn. And like I said, traditional school doesn't always allow for that. But from what I know works, where these teenagers that are in homeschool that have had the flexibility and have the autonomy to figure it out. There's one girl whose son is 16 and is like getting his hours in to go to flight school. He wants to be a pilot. He's getting his hours at 16 years old to be a pilot. That's all he wants to do. Right? And so everything is put, he figures out when he's going to go get his hours. It is a beautiful thing. He is very aware of himself. He knows what he likes. Nobody's confusing him. He's not stressed out. I just think it's a beautiful thing. And so for that question, I'm not sure if that was the answer that you were looking for, but our teenagers are so wise. And yes, there are some lazy ones. There's some hard-headed ones, but typically when they are lazy or hard-headed or just giving you, there's a reason. There's some underlying something. It's something, we like to say it's hormones. It's not always hormones. There's something that they are not feeling heard about. There's something that there's something. And once you figure out what that something is, and then you say, you know what, I know you're going through this, but here, just make sure your geography is done by 7 o'clock tonight. I don't care how you do it. 6:30, that's your problem. Just make sure it's done. You will see that there's going to be a change because you trust them. They now know that you trust them to get it done. And a lot of this is mistrust, that you don't trust that you have raised your child to know better. And you have.
That is so good. Can you guys hear me? Okay, good. That is so good. And that's a perfect segue into our closing topic, is that you said ask your children about their learning. And I think that's a missed opportunity for parents, is that we don't ask our children, hey, what are your favorite subjects? Why do you like them? What about them? Because you're learning then about them. And then what's the best way for you to learn? And you can ask them, like, are you really a morning person or an evening person? How many of you have worked with somebody who's like, I'm not a morning person and I can't get my life together until I have my Starbucks? Well, guess what? That was you in high school too. You were not a morning person. That means your child is not a normal person.
All those people that purposely took night classes in college, I see you.
Right. So listen, people, just talk to your babies and help them be the best versions of yourself, which I promise will make you less stressed. But I know everybody wants to know this question is, how are you taking care of yourself? Because both of you are wives, both of you run businesses, and you have children, and all of that's happening in the home. How are you finding time and balancing getting Steffi and Chamel what they need, but also you're still showing up as a wife? Can you talk to us a little bit more about what that self-care routine looks like and how you're also showing up and keeping the balance as a wife?
Sure, I can go first. For me, my main thing is creating space. Space can look like resting, not doing anything. Space could be, I'm just off in my closet. I tell people I'll run to the closet. That's kind of like my space. The boys don't know I'm in there. That's my space to sit, read, or whatever that looks like. But I think just giving myself permission every day to say, make space for you, whether that's praying, doing something that I like. And then two, here's the other thing. I'm married, and sometimes as women who may be married, we want to be superwoman all the time. I've learned to utilize my husband more. And those opportunities where he's like, I want to help, the old me would have been like, I got it. Now I'm like, when babes get home, I'm like, okay, I've done X, Y, and Z. Can you take care of the boys? And he does an amazing job giving me an hour or two of quiet time, whatever, if that's catching up on business work or go watch a TV show or go for a walk. I am really allowing myself to ask for help. and to receive the help. And so for me, it's just making that space to make sure that I'm making time for that self-care. And another thing I think for me is being okay with where I am. Just that daily reminder that it's okay and that I don't have to try to figure out all this homeschooling dynamic all at one time. Also, it's causing me to realize that what do I want for moving forward after we get through all of this? Do I still feel the same way? Do I want to bring the boys home or want to be more involved in the schooling? It's really giving myself time to articulate that and figure what that looks like, and just honor that time. So for me, it's just making that space, whatever 5 to 5 minutes to an hour, whatever that looks like, just giving myself that space to do it.
So make sure that you're giving yourself permission every day to make space for you and utilize your husband more. Stop putting on that superwoman case, feeling like you got to do everything. In Chamel's case, in Sethlina's case, they both own businesses and they work inside the home, but their husbands work outside the home. But they are allowing the husbands to participate in the parenting process and helping and taking advantage of opportunities to be one with themselves, whether that's in the closet, on the patio, in the car, in the shower, wherever. So allow your husband to show up or your partner to show up for you in the relationship. And how are you doing self-care, Seth, and showing up for Steffi and as a wife?
It's been hard, I won't even lie, because I am there's no substitute teacher over in these parts. It's I am the principal, I am the teacher, I am the lunch lady, I'm all of it. And so it can be difficult. However, what I find is that, especially since my husband is now working from home, I sleep in. I don't figure it out. Unless if you have a really important meeting that you cannot, it's just not going to be possible, let me know. I'll be up early, but 10 o'clock, you might see me around 10:30, right? And then I'll take over the rest of the day. And then I completely shut down around 6:37. Peace. And I used to apologize for it. And I used to be like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And after dinner, there is nothing else you need from me. Like there's nothing possibly that you need from me. Tell me what, there's nothing, right? So I will get in my bed. And that's kind of how I have been dealing with things even before Corona. Like by 7:30, it is daddy daycare, you know? And I'm sensitive to like some of my friends that are single moms, right? Who don't have that same shut off, that same like, I can't deal. But from a friend of mine, she puts her kids to bed early purposely, even in the midst of Corona. She's like, yep, 8 o'clock, they still in bed. I don't care. And that's her way of saying, I'm going to keep some kind of consistency. Yes, they're going to be up at 6 o'clock in the morning, but I'll deal with that when it gets there. They're in bed by 8. And so there's another tip. Also flexibility in that even in my homeschooling, I don't know what God has for me. I don't know if it's forever. I don't know if they're going to be in school next semester. I have no idea. And that's not my problem to worry about. Right. And so because I have allowed God to say that my kid could be in the public school down the street this come September, or he could be at home. So because of that, I just do what I can daily. I just do what I can, and just figure it out every day. If today is a math day, today's a math day, and tomorrow's a lay on the grass day, tomorrow's a lay on the grass day, and I don't stress about what he's missing or how he's going to get it done. And yeah, some days are ice cream for dinner. It's not my problem.
Some days are ice cream for dinner. Listen, you got to give yourself some grace. My good friend said to me last week when we were together, she was like, listen, I was on about 16,000 conference calls. The baby was on 16,000 Skypes with his teachers. And then by 9 o'clock, it was time for him to go to bed. He's like, Mommy, my head hurts. She was like, why do you think your head hurts? He was like, well, maybe because I'm hungry and you forgot to feed me. She forgot to feed the baby. Listen, she was like, we had Cheerios for dinner. What you want from me? That's the best I could do. She forgot.
Sometimes it's like that.
Sometimes it is.
Dinner the other day was popcorn. Like it is what it is. And I used to be that mommy in the kitchen that had to make everything fresh. No longer. So that's how I take care of myself. And some days daddy take them to Chick-fil-A and live their best life. It's not my problem. So yeah. I pick and choose what is really my problem and what is my problem because of mommy guilt and wife guilt and every other guilt. And then I eradicate the missing links.
Yeah.
Eradicate the guilt, people. Eradicate the guilt.
Have to.
Yeah, you have to do that. You have to do that. Well, ladies, thank you both so much. I know that you were incredibly busy, and I don't take it for granted that you said yes. So thank you for putting a pause in your day and sharing with us very truthfully and transparently about your journeys, both from the homeschooling perspective and the adjustment to learning at home. We appreciate these tips and wisdom that you've shared with us graciously. Thank you for each one of you that have joined us. And let's keep the conversation going. If you guys want to continue to talk to them about their tips, I know that they'll share them with you. You can follow them both on Instagram at Chamel Evans. You can find their information in the chat. Just scroll up. But it's at Chamel Evans. Chamel will tell me if I'm getting that wrong. And then Sethlina Amayke, basically both of their names. You can just follow them on Instagram. If you're not signed up for their respective newsletters, you can find them both in the chat, how you can do that. And also, if you're not signed up for the Total Woman Summit newsletter, you can do that at totalwomansummit.com and follow us on Instagram and social media. And then you probably see on my screen that I have this 20 for 20. I want to make sure that we're protecting our frontline workers, and our good friends over at the Salvation Army need masks, especially since the world reopened. So I need you all to commit to helping me. $20 buys 20 masks. If you could do that for me, you find all the information on the screen. You can just text COVID relief to 9199, and you can make sure that you make your donations there, or you can go to healthgearnow.com, which is a business that is owned by my good friend Jelana, who was with us this past Friday, who talked to us about sourcing suppliers internationally for your businesses. And so she's a woman-owned business and a minority-owned business, so we definitely want to support her to get you those products. And then you can order some for yourself too, for your family, and also share with with the Salvation Army through our program with United Way. And tonight, our second segment of education and mommying, we will have Dr. Jones, who is an educator who advises our administration, our local education administration, on what this looks like from an educator perspective. So please join us tonight as we continue this conversation. And as soon as this is over, you're going to get a survey. Please fill it out. We'd love to hear your feedback. And thank you all so much for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful afternoon and a wonderful week. Thank you. Bye.